60% of all WordPress sites that were hacked because somebody had an outdated plugin. That's scary.
Hi, my name's Rob. I'm a sales engineer at WordPress, and I'm here today with Andy, who's a product manager at WordPress, and his strong point is our WordPress products. And so today, and that's what we're going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing state of WordPress at the moment, and basically any topics around that. So, Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. My name is Andrey, and I've been with WebPros for, I think, over 17 years. And most of that time, I've spent, majority of that time, I've spent working on WordPress-related products, starting with WP Toolkit. And right now we have some other new exciting products related to WordPress coming out. So I'm also involved there as well. I've been working on Plesk and other products as well, but WordPress is my main passion and my main thing in the company, so to say.
So, the WordPress market at the moment. I mean, I know I've been to WordCamps. I've had a lot of interaction with the WordPress community, and I know it's growing, and it's a really big thing at the moment. I myself, I've been in this industry for around about 20 years. So I know when I started, basically most people were traditional web hosting.
Yeah.
And it was editing HTML yourself, and websites tended to look pretty ugly unless you really got a serious expert developing the site.
Yeah.
So I know, there's been this revolution with CMS options, and WordPress is obviously the biggest and most popular of those. But also, we do now appear to have a generation where web hosting is almost as if it's becoming a commodity, I think. And so you've got these like instant solutions where people just do a quick point and click somewhere and fill the website. So how do you actually see this development, and how do you see, the WordPress position in relation to this sort of instant generation?
Mm-hmm. This is actually a pretty cool question because if you look back at the times that you've mentioned, I've been there. I still remember discovering CSS for the first time, like, oh, I can do that. So the paths slowly started to diverge at the beginning of the 2000s. And it was then where, like, you had one branch where people went, okay, we gotta do that, but more complex because we're having, like, more control over what we're doing. And it was the beginning of web applications as they are, right? Because at first it was just sites, just static HTML and stuff. And like dynamic languages were like, oh my God, what's that? You can do that? Yeah. So, and the other thing, the other branch, so to say, was people who were like, okay, this is going into the way that a lot of us cannot work with because it's getting too complicated. HTML was complicated for a lot of people. So let's see what we can do to help those people who don't know that and who obviously will not be able to learn more complex topics. Let's go with the instant site builders and whatnot. It actually started quite a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago, and it just went to different ways, and the applications got more complex and bigger and more powerful, and at the same time the web builders, or whatever we call them, the site builders usually, went the other way. And I know that because I was responsible for one of the site builders in our company, so I was kind of looking at all of that, right? But then later, like as we come closer to the current year, the community of people who were like on the complex tech side, they realized that the sheer volume of people who are going into the whole website administration, web presence creation industry, let's put it this way, it's such an overwhelming amount of people, and that you got to do something, because otherwise that whole thing where you're like a tech person, you do a complex thing like Drupal, maybe like Joomla and WordPress and other CMS and blog systems that you have to install by yourself, configure by yourself. It's going to shrink. If you're not doing something with that, it's going to shrink, because people will simply go to where it's simpler for them. And since you have a huge influx of people who are new, they're obviously not going to go, yeah, I want that because it's so complex and powerful. No, they're going to use something simpler. And this is where I think the paths start to converge a bit again, because WordPress right now works a lot on making sure that these users, and just users who want to use WordPress, kind of have an easier time. Well, at the moment, they don't have it as easy as if you were doing an instant site builder, right? But we should go there. I believe that in order for WordPress to be more successful, they have to bridge this gap. They have to solve this, because otherwise, just put yourself in the place of a person who are just starting, right? Like I wouldn't say a Zoomer specifically, right? But you get the idea. So if you take a person like that, they're used to doing things, I wouldn't say instant gratification because it sounds a bit negative, but they're used to like absolutely fast, almost instantaneous feedback from the system they're interacting with, like smartphones and Facebook and all of that stuff.
Exactly. So they like to see the results quick.
Absolutely, because the world is getting faster and faster and faster, like the tempo of living and so on and so on. And then basically you're like, you gotta accommodate for these people and for the way they expect the software to work. And it means that, okay, WordPress as it is right now might be too slow for them, because you have to install it. Oh wait, before you install it, you have to buy hosting. And people are like, what is hosting? Why can't I just go to, I don't know, some kind of a site building solution that does the all-in-one package and does hosting and everything, and just gives me this instant result? And this is where I think WordPress is, as far as I can tell, WordPress is kind of going, because it's the most popular solution from that branch of like technical solutions, so to say, in the world. And it's hugely popular, and deservedly so, in my opinion. It has a fantastic community, as you've said, and it offers a lot. You can do anything with that, and but the price of the entry is relatively high. So the question is, what we can do to lower this barrier of entry, and what we, as a company, the Web Pros, can do to help WordPress guys do that, because we're talking with them all the time. And we're trying to figure out what we can do on our side as well.
Yeah, because I mean, I know with my background, I started off in traditional server hosting, and it very often was the case of if you needed a company website, the first step was you rented a server.
Oh yeah,
and then you got your entire server just for you. Fine, but that's quite nice, but it's not cheap. And then you've got to get your guys in to actually start developing your website. And I do think, I mean, I know we, as a company, Web Pros, we have some solutions which make all of that a lot easier. And I think also with the traditional hosters who are offering them web hosting or managed WordPress hosting, for example, they can now install a solution on a server that they have, and then they can be basically selling out packages on that to the WordPress user for them. It doesn't have to go and think about what kind of server do I need, how am I going to install it, and all of that. The hoster has already done that with the big package that we're offering, and then that package has the possibility that when the user logs in, obviously, one click, and he's going. He's got WordPress fully installed with all the options set already.
Yeah, we do that.
Packages, and it's just done in seconds. And I do think that's a really, really great sort of development.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a veteran, you actually can compare how it was before and how it is now. And you probably sit there and I wish I had that back then. But it is what it is. And And we can do even better. And we're thinking about ways of making it even easier for customers, because I think that every single step matters, even if it's a small step, because like you compare, you gotta understand that people don't look at it from a purely, let's say, from a purely like narrow perspective, because a lot of times hosters tend to think, okay, I'm competing with other hosters. No, you're not. It's worse than that. You're competing with stuff like Facebook, for example, and like I'm using a barber, and they don't have a site. Actually, they have a Facebook page, and they have an app integrated in that for the scheduling. It has no branding. It doesn't look nice, but it works. Yeah. And just if you're a hoster, imagine what would it take to get these people off Facebook into your own like infrastructure, into your own service. And you will quickly realize that even a single extra step might be really difficult to overcome, because each step kind of adds to the whole why I'm doing this thing. And it is really important for us to make sure that we're kind of helping hosters with this, because a lot of hosters are still, unfortunately, in this mindset that, hey, I'm doing hosting, of course I'm successful. Where will these people go? They will find where to go, believe me. So I think this is why we're having these new cool projects like WP Square, for example, which aims at exactly that. Like, if you're a hoster, we can give you a tool for offering WordPress sites and services basically to your end user, and it aims at eliminating most of these extra steps, like as much as we can, to make sure that if a user kind of chooses, like starts to figure out where to go, they would look at your offer and be like, okay, that looks easy, I'll try that. This is what we want to have. This is how we can help the hosting community and the WordPress community as well, because it's a problem in both communities.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've obviously, being at the company, I've had a little play around with the WP Squared, which is still in early development, but it's looking very promising. And I have to say with that, this idea where the customer logs in and they're right there on the WordPress page, editing the site effectively almost immediately.
Yeah, it's really great.
There's no logging into some panel or interface and then going to the bit for WordPress and making selections. You basically, those first few selections are already done.
No distractions.
Exactly. And you're just straight into this is my site and I'm now setting it up.
Yeah, no distractions.
Also with the WTP toolkit, it actually makes it as well so that, somebody can spend a Saturday afternoon doing a website, and already just doing it on a Saturday afternoon, it looks 10 times better than a Facebook page.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And previously, like we say, from traditional hosting, you would probably have to get your web developers in and you'd be waiting weeks for a finished website. With this kind of solution that we have now, you can be up and running within a few hours with a website that works and looks good.
Yeah, and the cool thing about WP Square in particular is a lot of new solutions are coming up on the market, like we do WordPress this or we do something else, and typically they're built like from scratch, right? And they're new, they didn't really have the time to mature and iron out all the kinks. So I've tried some of them, they look great, but the second you step off the main path, something goes wrong. And I was sitting there thinking about that with the product owners of WP Square, whom I closely work with on a daily basis. And here's the thing, WP Square is based on the proven technology that we have, the WP Toolkit, which was first released in 2014. Like next year, it's going to be a 10-year anniversary. That's actually, and the cPanel too. So the thing is that we have a really robust foundation for this product. So if you start going off the beaten path, we got you. It's all right. It all works fine. So we have this really interesting combination of like stability and quality that was honed by the years, of people complaining and submitting feature requests and stuff like that. And on top of that, we got this new stuff, really new, really cool, really exciting. And that combination, I think, is the key to kind of making a really great solution that is not a flash in the pan, that will last you like months and years and so on and so on. Yeah.
No, of course. One thing actually I have noticed as well, which for me is a plus point for the WordPress side, when you're comparing it with this instant solutions that are available now, is whenever you see a website that's been made with one of these instant solutions, they all look the same.
Absolutely.
Because it's basically putting you down this narrow path, and you can't go off that path. And obviously with WordPress, you've got so many more possibilities, and so you can make a much more individual website. But then obviously with the tools that are around now, from us and even for other people, with those tools, it makes it also easier and accessible for people who are not totally technical minded. Which I find it is a really good development.
Absolutely. And Robert, you really have a good insight there with the site builders, because again, I was responsible for one of the site builders back in, I don't know, it was 2010 maybe. And this is a problem that they all have. They're sitting there and they're like, okay, we gotta give customer a choice, like what kind of website do they want? And it all in almost all cases, it boils down to let's make them choose a design template. And you cannot have, like, it's a delicate balance. If you have too many design templates, the customer gets lost. Like, how do I choose a template out of 1,000 templates? And on the other hand, if you don't go for 1,000 templates, if you have like 300 of them, the sites will inevitably look the same. And I've seen that actually. I've seen a couple of sites like from the same, let's say, industry, like in barbershops or whatnot, or like online stores that do something specific, like products for animals, for example. And they're like, you're using not only the same site builder, you're actually using the same template, just replacing the phone numbers and stuff like that. Are you sure it's a good idea? Because you're not really differentiating yourself from your neighborhood competition, so to say. I'm just like, that's where WordPress itself is obviously having an advantage, because you can have there are like tens of thousands of free themes fully customizable on the market. And I don't even know how many themes are not on the WordPress.org. Like they're premium, you have to pay for them. They're 3 times more than on the WordPress.org, I think. And this actually plays into the whole like getting people to feel that they're in control of the product thing. Because a lot of site builders, they're like, you have this template, you can select like and change this picture, that picture, and the text, and that's it. I'm like, what if I want to do something else? I've heard this complaint. So I'm like, you can't. Unfortunately, that's the way it works. And people will inevitably want to leave their own personal like footprint or mark on their site, because some of them realize like, okay, if I could select this, then my competition could select that as well. So what do I do to differentiate? It never, I think, happened ever with people, I mean, as far as I can tell from talking to customers, usually doesn't happen to people who are like using WordPress. Because it's like, of course, I'm just choosing a theme and somebody like will do the design for me, or I will be using some kind of what you see is what you get editor to actually build a theme out of my own blogs. They're not that restricting. They're not restricting at all, frankly speaking.
Also, I mean, with WordPress and with the WordPress community, if you're building a site and you're lost for ideas, or you can't figure out exactly how something works, the community will help.
Oh yeah,
and just contact anybody.
Yeah,
post on forum or something like that, and you immediately get help.
Absolutely, this is a huge strength, and I think that. Well, like I've had a number of private discussions like with people in the WordPress community, including some key people, and most of them tell me, look, we know that WordPress itself as a piece of code isn't perfect, but the community itself is probably its biggest strength, because there's so many people like real enthusiasts, excited about the product. They're excited about leaving their own mark, contributing to community, helping other people. If you go to WordCamp, and I've been on a lot of WordCamps throughout the years, it's always this atmosphere of, like, hey, what are you doing? How we can help? We're doing this, we're doing that, let's do something together. It's really a friendly, community, like, to me. And that's really great, because you don't find a community like that for the site builders. They're separate. They're not trying to.
I said earlier, the site builders are a commodity.
Yeah. They're not helping each other out. They're like, you're on your own. Like, it's between you and the company who sold you this site building solution. And in case of WordPress, hosting companies, like, we're helping you in any way you can. But you also have this fantastic community to go to and ask for help and even contribute to. And that's what people are doing. And this is great, because the strength, I don't think that you can have right now in this world a solution that could be truly global and, like, let's say, growth, that a community that could grow, a product that could grow that way without, let's say, crowdsourcing, so to say. Because the strength of the, like, thousands and millions of people working together, that's not something any company in the world can match, I think.
No. So we've already talked now about how we can make it much easier for people who have no experience to create a WordPress website. And obviously we have solutions for that. Within Plesk and cPanel, there is obviously the WP Toolkit, which, as you say, is coming up to being 10 years old.
Well, I'm feeling old.
Obviously, that's the first version is 10 years old, and it's been developed, and so obviously it's all modern and up to date. And we have the WP Squared as well as the specialist solution. But another thing that I hear from a number of people is security. Especially with businesses and this day, everybody's worried, is somebody going to hack me? Am I going to be, my customer data, is that going to be stolen or anything like that? And I mean, are there solutions, in the works for that? And do we have any solutions already?
This is a really good question. And there's so much to unravel here. So before we go into solutions, I would like to just generally talk about the security situation in WordPress, so to say. Because I've been talking to a couple of security vendors, and what they're telling me, again, privately, they're like, it was performance a couple of years ago. That was the hot topic in the WordPress community. Now it's security, and it's been for several years. And when you look at the stats that are published, even the public stuff, that's scary. Because you're looking at things like, if you have an outdated WordPress site, like outdated plugins, the chance that you'll get hacked is pretty high. Like, you look at stats, like 60% of all WordPress sites that were hacked because somebody had an outdated plugin. And you're like, but wait a second. Like, you could say, Andrey, wait a second, but you can automatically update plugins. You could automatically update themes. Where's the problem? And the problem is you cannot always do that. So first, we've encountered situations where there is a vulnerability, but there's no update to fix it. And we actually know for a fact that if you report vulnerabilities back to the plugin authors, not all of them reply. Some people just abandon their plugins. And if you're using a plugin for your site, it's not like you check it daily, like, is it abandoned? No, yeah. No, you're not doing that. You're just working, right? And there's no update for the plugin that shows up in your WordPress admin panel and WP Toolkit, so you think you're fine, you're up to date. Technically you are, but doesn't mean that the plugin isn't vulnerable. That's a big problem. The second problem is, like, even if there's an update, it is scary. Like, I've had a site give me the famous white screen of death of WordPress site because I've updated a plugin. Because I was using my host was using a really old PHP version, which is a security problem in and of itself. Right, yeah. And I updated the plugin, and the plugin didn't work with that version, and it just completely like widescreened my whole site. I had to revert from a backup, and it was really scary experience. Like I never realized how scary it is until I got hit by that. I wasn't hacked, but I got hit with this update problem. And I was like, okay, next time I'll be doing the update, I'll do the full backup on everything, and I'm going to double check everything. It leaves a scar, you know. And this is, and it was a simple plugin. I didn't have anything business critical there. What if you have a WooCommerce site with thousands of active orders? Like, are you willing to gamble the whole thing just because there's a security issue that could potentially be exploited? It's a really difficult situation for people who have WordPress sites. So they're looking at that and like, okay, updating takes time. I need to check that. I need to do this and that and do the backup and kind of schedule it and let my customers know that like my site won't be available that day from this time to that time. And since it takes time to prepare, like what if it's a 0-day vulnerability that's been getting exploited right now and you need to act right now? It's a really tough situation in terms of security, unfortunately. And most of the tools, the security tools, they don't really help you with that. Like they can let you know, WP Toolkit, for example, it will let you know about the vulnerability. It will help you figure out like, do you need to update it? Or maybe you should disable that. But we're still working on adding, let's say, a good way to mitigate that without having to wake up at 3 a.m. to like, oh my God, there's a new vulnerability, I gotta do something. And B, so being proactive, and B, actually being non-intrusive. We don't have that technology like in the queue, so to say. We call it virtual patches. So the idea behind it is that we install a tiny plugin inside a WordPress site, and it works like a web application firewall, just really, really tiny. So for example, if you have a known vulnerability, and since we're inside WordPress, we know what plugins you have, what themes you have, which versions you have, and we have our own database of vulnerabilities that is updated every hour. We get it from our partners at PatchStack. So we are looking at the database on a hourly basis, and we're like, okay, we know what's up with your site. And if we have this plugin, it can actually go to the same database that we have, take a firewall rule basically for vulnerability and apply it. And unlike stuff that is like a blanket carpet bombing everything, like, your typical web application firewall, not security, right? We will apply 10,000 rules whether you need them or not, and it kind of affects your performance, right? Unlike that, virtual patches work like surgically, literally. For example, recently we were looking at a vulnerability in the duplicator plugin. It was patched a long time ago, but still some sites kind of used that old version of a plugin. It was really serious. You could get the passwords for the whole server using that vulnerability. It's just a single site on the server is hacked. And the fix for that in the virtual patches was one line. Just a single line. It doesn't have any impact on performance if you do that, right? So the interesting thing here is that we have this technology we will have this technology in WP Toolkit and by extension WP Square, and it's all good if you use Plesk cPanel or WP Square. But some of our partners have servers without Plesk cPanel and then cannot for some reason like install it or use it. So we're thinking about what we can do with that, because we want to have a web secure. We don't want our partners to be like distracted by that. And we made a new product codenamed WP Guard, which basically allows you to connect your no panel or without Plesk, without cPanel, maybe some other panel, servers, to that product. We will install a tiny WP Toolkit based agent on the server. We'll check everything. We'll find all the sites, all the vulnerabilities and everything. We will allow you to, like, you want an update, no problem. Auto update settings, no problem. We can all do that. But it will also include the virtual patching technology. So you can actually say, on this server, I want to protect everything. And if a new site comes up, I don't have to go back and say, hey, okay, where's the new site? I want to protect it. If you protect the whole server, we will automatically add that to all new sites we found. Yeah, and that goes again for WP Toolkit, for WP Square, because it's a really cool technology that will allow you, both as a hoster and a site admin, to have a peace of mind, to sit down and think, okay, this is good. I don't actually have to. I will be notified that there's a vulnerability, but it was patched, and I will have this feeling of warmth and care inside of me because web pros took care of me. They did that, and I didn't really have to go to some extra lengths to.
So effectively, in the end, you have the maximum possible security on your sites without having to physically patch the sites.
Yeah, it's non-intrusive.
Layer in between, not taking misbehaving plugins and then replacing them and breaking the website.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just not doing that. It's just protecting against the vulnerabilities and giving you the security.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's non-intrusive. It kind of gives you time to actually address the situation properly, because it says, okay, we got it patched. It's not a full fix. The vulnerability is still there, but it is not active. It cannot be exploited. So take your time, plan your update, and do something with it when it is convenient for you. Not for us or for the hacker or for everybody else. It's up to you.
Because I know, with the WP Toolkit, we've had the smart updates in there for some time.
Yeah.
And this helps with making sure you don't break a website.
Correct. That's correct.
If updating a plugin, which would fix the vulnerability, does break the website, then you've potentially got quite a lot of work.
Yeah. With whatever technology we have, it is still a problem. That's why we thought, okay, we will help with the updates and everything, and that is all fine. But we also want to make sure that you don't have to do the update when it's kind of forced. It feels forced on you, right? So, and that was one of the key things behind the virtual patches technology that we will be introducing, all the products that we have that address the instant generation that we've mentioned in the beginning of our talk, and the more classic hoster generation with WP Toolkit and WP Guard and so on and so on. So we're looking to cover all the bases on all the possible market segments, so to say, help everybody and everyone we can. So classic WordPress generation that was raised on I'm going deep into that and I'm doing my tap things, and the instant generation that we've started our discussion with, that is I want that immediately. Okay, you got that, and you got security immediately as well,
and all of the options that WordPress offers you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just on top of WordPress. We're kind of also giving it to the community, so to say, so that they actually say, okay, good, we're safe on that front, and then that front, and that front as well.
Yeah. So I think actually it's probably a good time for us to wrap there.
Sounds good.
I think we've had a reasonable discussion about what's coming up, and from us, but also generally in the industry as well. So thank you very much, Andrey.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. And thanks everybody for listening.